AITAH for breaking up with my fiance after he made my family feel unwelcome in our home. My fiance, 30M, recently bought a house, and I, 28F, moved in with him. The house is in his name only, but our arrangement was that he pay the mortgage, and I pay all utilities, groceries. He has been trying to get me to see the home as ours, but I still consider it his, since my name is nowhere on the mortgage deed or even rental agreement, and he has been taking care of all home ownership expenses. I originally wanted for us to buy a home together after getting married, but our leases were almost up, and he had the money for a house and didn't want to keep renting any longer than necessary, so now seemed like the best time. I was okay with this since I wasn't in a financial position yet to help put down money on a new home either way and think our current arrangement is more than fair. Anyways, my family was super excited when they heard that he bought a place and that we would be moving to a house instead of continuing to live in our small apartments. They love him like a son and were so happy about him finally becoming a homeowner. My mom and her sister, my aunt, asked if they could come visit us for the 4th of July holiday since they were off and wanted to see the new place. They live about 3 hours away and wanted to take the train. I initially told them no since it was so close to the time we were finishing the move, but when my fiancé heard about it, he assured me it would be okay and he was happy to have them visit. He loves my aunt's cooking and she loves to cook for people, so he thought it would be great to have her come cook, and we would have our place ready for them by then. We bought all the furniture we needed, beds for the guest rooms, etc. His sister and her kids were also going to be in town and would be visiting us, so it was going to be nice having everyone meet and spend the day together. I was really looking forward to it, and even bought a new grill. He bought fireworks to shoot off with the kids. It was supposed to be a fun weekend and our first time hosting as a couple. At first everything was going well and everyone was getting along. My mom and aunt were cooking while his sister was just hanging out talking and the kids were watching TV. My mom started washing a dish and I mentioned to her to not use the sponge to clean the counters because my fiancé doesn't like that. Something about bacteria spreading from the sponge to the counter. We clean our counters with sponges back home. I grew up doing it this way, so I figured I'd tell her beforehand so he wouldn't get upset. He decided to make this a topic of conversation, just debate, and asked his sister for her thoughts on this. It seemed like he wanted to prove he was right about the bacteria thing, since it was something we had argued about way back when I washed dishes at his apartment for the first time. I had long ago conceded he was right and stopped using a sponge on counters. His sister disagreed with his logic, though, and pointed out that the sponge in the sink is collecting bacteria either way, and he's going to wash another dish with it and spread the bacteria to the dishes that he eats with. So his logic about it spreading to the counter didn't make too much sense unless he's replacing the sponge after every use. He proceeded to pull up CDC articles and try to prove his point. But her logic also made sense. She didn't think it was a hill to die on and teased him about being a psycho over the bacteria and sponge thing. He finally dropped it and we started talking about other things. I should mention that his new home has quartz counters and he made it be known when we moved in that I definitely couldn't use a sponge since he says it'll damage the stone, so the whole bacteria debate was pointless anyways. We were talking about the house, and I brought up that he has been very careful with things in the new house and joked that he has even been waking up at 4 a.m. to trim hedges in the front lawn like a psycho. He laughed, but I later learned he took offense to my comment. My mom made a joke at some point about him being quite particular about his new house and laughed along with my aunt. Prior to this, he had already joked around with her through the security cameras when she went outside by scaring her and telling her to wipe her feet before coming in. He thought it was funny to joke around with her like that. I knew there was an element of truth to his joking, but my mom took it in good fun though, since she also jokes around with him, so that was fine, I guess. The kids were sitting alone on the couch, and I was trying to be a good host, so I asked if they wanted anything to eat or drink, and his nephew, 7M, asked for a cookie, which I gave him along with a napkin, and he went back to the couch to continue watching TV with his brother. I didn't see it, but apparently he dropped cookie crumbs on the couch while he was eating. Obviously not on purpose, they're good kids. My fiance saw the crumbs and immediately got upset and started scolding him, and I stepped in and said it was my fault and that I gave him the cookie. I honestly didn't see a problem with this at the time since we sometimes eat dinner on the couch, and the material is very easy to clean, but I didn't say anything about that. My fiance turned to me and started scolding me about eating on the couch in front of everyone. I apologized multiple times, and he kept going on about how the couch is brand new and there shouldn't be any eating on it, and giving me stern looks like a parent gives a child. After I apologized for the third time, his sister stepped in and was like, "Okay, bro, she apologized. I think she gets it." I was super embarrassed to have him scold me like that in front of everyone, but I shrugged it off since I didn't want to kill the mood and make it more awkward for our guests. We ended the night by shooting off fireworks with his nephews, and then they went home with his sister, and we went to sleep. At this point, my family got the sense that he was very serious about the upkeep of the house and started feeling uncomfortable and like they were intruding in his very clean space. The next day, they spent most of the day outside of the house shopping and going for walks so they wouldn't be in the way. My fiancé spent the day locked in his office working and playing video games and didn't really come out. It wasn't like my family to spend so much time away as they usually like talking and spending time together with us. So at night I decided to go on one of their walks with them, and my mom mentioned how much she loved the area where we live due to all the parks and couldn't wait to come back, but for me not to worry because she will rent a hotel room so she doesn't bother us too much. I guess it broke my heart a little bit hearing that because I realized we'd made her and my aunt feel unwelcomed in our new home. She'd never come outright and say that, but my mom and aunt had visited me in my tiny apartment before, slept on air mattresses, and not once complained or say they'd prefer to stay in a hotel. When we got back, it was late, and my fiancé was still in his office playing video games. I could tell he was also being distant, and I didn't want to bother him, so I went to bed. He joined me a few minutes later and wanted to talk. He said he didn't like the comment I made earlier calling him a psycho in my story, and that he was also unhappy with my family joking and laughing about him. He said he felt disrespected in his own house. I felt like I had so many things to say to him, but my family was in the next room and my fiancé has a tendency to yell whenever we have disagreements, so I just apologized to him. I told him I was telling a funny story and completely joking and didn't mean it literally, but I understood where he was coming from and it wouldn't happen again. I also apologized on my family's behalf and told him they didn't mean any harm, and from my perspective it looked like he was joking right back with them, but I was sorry either way. I also pointed out his sister had also called him a psycho and asked if he was upset at her too. He said he had already talked to his sister about that, and she apologized and they were good. My family was due to stay with us for a couple more days, so after I apologized for everything, I told him what my mom said about staying in the hotel and how I can tell they're feeling unwelcomed and how it's breaking my heart that they feel that way in our home. I told him that since he was also upset at them, not to worry, that I would make sure we do things outside the house for the next couple of days so they stay out of his way until they leave. Even though I was apologizing to him, my heart hurt for my family, and I decided in that moment that I couldn't stay with someone that created such an unwelcoming environment for our guests when they visit. Especially not my family. We're really close, and aside from him, they're all I have. They traveled 3 hours by train each way, super excited to visit. My aunt even visited a special supermarket to get the right sausages to make his favorite dish, carrying it in a cooler by train along with other goodies that he would like. The love and thoughtfulness she put into it, IDK, it broke me a little bit. She's far from a rich person, but extremely giving with all she has, and I love her so much for that. She's always getting his favorite foods and buying him little gifts whenever we visit her. I felt so bad for putting her in that situation. I don't think he ever even offered them a water the whole time they were with us. It truly felt like he cared more about his precious new house than the people in it. Anyways, I told him after I dropped them off at the train station on their last day that I would be leaving too and that it was over between us. He wouldn't need to worry about us messing up his place or disrespecting him in his own house anymore. Over the next couple of days, my family sensed something was off, but all I told them is that he's mad at me over a disagreement. I didn't tell them that he was also upset at them, but they felt it. He locked himself up in his room for the rest of their stay, and whenever he would come out, he completely ignored us, wouldn't even look their way or mutter more than a hi. I think he only came downstairs once while we were watching TV to snatch the remote and turn the bass off because it was rumbling his room upstairs. Didn't say a word to any of us as he did this. My aunt was hurt since she really loves him like a son and felt like she did something to upset him. She's a very sentimental person, and my mom let it slip. She was crying the night before thinking he hates her. She wasn't wrong. He would either look down or look at us like he hated us every time we passed him in the hall or something, but I know that would have broken her heart, so I told her he was mad at me for something and not to worry that he still loved her very much, but was just mad at me. He didn't bother to come out of his room and say goodbye as they were leaving. Even through all that, my aunt's last words to me at the train station were for me to make up with him because she loves both of us so much. I've been feeling so conflicted about all of this, so please help me out here, Reddit. On one hand, I feel bad for calling him a psycho, even if it was in a joking manner. But on the other hand, I've been feeling so bad for my family and how they must have felt staying in a house with that kind of energy when I know they had good intentions. So Reddit, AITAH,